All right, good afternoon, guys. Welcome to another edition of Soul Inspiration by Adadel Center. Today we have the lovely Mrs. Erika Delgado Scott in the house. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Doing great, man. You look good. How's the family? How's the husband, the daughter? Everybody good?
I have no complaints. Nothing. I'm so grateful. Everybody's good.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Amen. How was your Easter, by the way?
It was good.
Yeah?
We are still kind of finding our community
Yes,
here.
ma'am. Yes,
so
ma'am.
We did church,
Okay.
and then we had a date night.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So no big like family dinner
Right.
experience, but it was really good.
All right, so she off the market, guys. She said we had a date night, so don't try to hit us up, man. She got a good husband too, so so we always kind of start, with being a foot and ankle guy, people's shoe game. I know you got a 6 shoe game, so we're gonna talk about this a little bit.
Sure.
But first things first, what would you say are the oldest pair of shoes you have in your collection right now? I mean, anything right there that has been in there for a while? Let's talk about why you still got them. Of the collection you have right there, which one would you say is the oldest?
Probably neck and neck would be my Vibram toe shoes.
All right, pick it up. Let's see, man.
And
so you a minimalist kind of lady, man? You believe in that minimalist stuff?
Yes, I do. Yes.
We're gonna fight about this, man, but another day.
Okay. You the expert.
No, you're good, man. You're good. All right, tell me a little bit about that, man. How long you had those, and what do you use those for?
This is actually my second pair.
Okay.
And so, probably over 10 years.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. You a runner?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So when my husband and I first got married, we moved to College Station.
Okay.
He was going to medical school.
Amen.
And we liked working out together.
Right.
So we were trying to find something to do together.
Do together, right? Yeah.
So we started on the Couch to 5K app.
Oh, wow.
And started running together.
Wow.
And that was our first introduction to running and eventually running long distances, and eventually we ran a 5K in Austin.
Okay.
And so I think I started learning about running and what felt good when working out.
Okay.
And I just knew that like being barefoot was a thing that people were doing when they were running.
Right.
People running in sandals, like barefoot sandals and whatnot.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to try it out. And whenever we go buy shoes, it was really, you can really buy whatever kind of shoes you want. You don't have a step or a gate that needs a particular type of support.
Right.
And so I just kind of like the feeling of not having heavy feet when I was running or working out.
Right. So you don't need all that support and all that
cushion and
in
arch
there.
support.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah. There's the whole philosophy of earthing and grounding. I don't know if you know about this, where people believe that the natural elements in the earth, kind of go through your body and your feet. You down with all that?
Yep.
Very good. Now let's talk about the newest pair of shoes you have in your collection, and why did you get these shoes?
So these are kind of my date night shoes.
Date night shoes. All right.
Out with the honey.
Okay. Okay. How often do y'all do date night? I'm gonna put you on the spot now.
Not often enough.
It's just never enough, right?
Never enough. Yes.
Cha-ching, man. Plus that baby too, I'm sure.
We have a 6-year-old,
Yes.
and we're also again new to this area. We don't have any family here.
Makes sense.
My sister is the closest, and she's about like 75 minutes from us, so she'll come in, for overnight things.
Absolutely.
Or, she's had her before for multiple days for us if we did go on a little trip.
That's a blessing.
But the weekly date night thing, it's just really tough. It's tough to find a babysitter or build capacity for a babysitter.
Absolutely, yeah.
Trust people with your,
True that.
your precious little gem.
That, yes.
Yes, but I, over time, in my marriage relationship, have learned that my husband is a very visual person, and the pops of color, the vibrancy, and then how I present myself in those pops of color, in the just your swag, just how you show up in those things.
Show up how you carry yourself.
Those things really matter a lot.
Absolutely.
And so investing in a pair of shoes that I can just pop on with whatever outfit I'm going to be wearing for date night.
Yes.
reminds me of like, okay, he's a visual person.
Right.
I want him to see the effort and see that I'm putting some thought into it,
Wow.
which I don't always do well. I'm being transparent about
No,
that.
no. But
Sometimes
you
it's
better
like,
than most, man. You better than most.
The best I can do.
He a blessed man. Ladies, no pressure. You see what you're doing out here, right? Okay.
Trying.
I love it. Are those comfortable? I mean, how many inches would you say those are?
Probably 2.
2-3 inches.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I'm surprised they're decently comfortable.
Comfortable.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's very, very good. All right. Very good.
Which is not also you're not going to find a lot of heels over 2 inches that are comfortable.
True that. I can testify to that. No doubt. All right. How about any pair of shoes your husband got for you or recently or whenever? Is he a shopper? Will he just go out and pick out a pair of shoes? And if he does he get it right? Because a lot of fellas be trying, man, but they be messing up big time.
You know, complete transparency.
Yep.
This is a baggage area for us because I'm a very simple earth tone.
Yep.
I can wear black, and it doesn't mean I'm sad.
True that.
And he's very much the opposite.
Okay.
You know, he's like, I need some color. Why are you wearing black?
Right,
Why are you sad today? Like, no, I just have a black t-shirt.
Got a black t-shirt on, right?
And so that has been something. Even it's so interesting that is a thing that we have worked on over time.
Wow,
you know,
look at that.
We're trying to grow that area.
Absolutely.
So the very last time that we had a positive experience with like shopping and picking something out is, you know, we're going to this thing and I'd love for you to have something new. I procured these 3 or 4 items. Right. Can you go and try them on? And then I get the final say. Like, okay, out of the 4, I picked these 2 things. Thank you for doing that.
Okay.
And you know, we have to get to the place where I can do that myself. And also, I think in a marriage you have to decide of, does my husband get say so in this arena?
Right.
How much say so,
right?
How much is too much, where then you are uncomfortable. Right. I feel like I'm not really myself, and I'm making someone else happy. So it is a very interesting little balance beam. You just have to feel comfortable finding that middle ground. Right. Where I still feel like I'm myself. I feel comfortable. This does speak to my mood today or my character. But it also catches the eye for him.
Absolutely. Yeah. And only a mature person will actually, you know, notice that and then, you know, not just notice it, but actually verbalize that. I mean, it's really important, man. I mean, how long y'all been married?
13 years.
13 years. I mean, hey, that's over a decade, man. We don't see these nowadays. So, you know, I'm gonna be calling you and getting some tips from you for sure.
Okay.
You know,
it's progress. You know, we didn't always start there. So just
no
being
doubt.
willing to continue to massage the idea. And,
absolutely.
Reveal, you know, why things are important or why they're not important.
Exactly.
And I think understanding, like trying just to understand, like, why is this so important to you, and why does this matter to you? Right. And vice versa. Why does this not matter to you?
Right. Right.
Yeah. So no, none of these shoes he specifically picked out. But oftentimes there is an input, right?
Right.
I'm thinking about these shoes, or if he's with me, or if I'm trying on the outfit, and like which of the shoes, right? Absolutely. Sometimes it's like none of the shoes.
Yes.
So we need new shoes.
New ones, yes.
None of those.
Very good. All right. How about any shoes with any particular sentimental value? Shoes you probably will never get rid of, you know, or are you one of those that would, you know, you don't hold on to material things? I feel like you're one of those that would just donate whatever. You're not hugging onto anything in particular. Yes.
None of them.
Okay.
All of them are negotiable, can be given away.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, that kind of, I try to be very careful about having heart ties to things in that way. All of them can have some symbolism.
Right.
Like I can, you know, tell you a story about why this can have a parallel or a symbolism to something in my life. But if you needed me to get rid of all of them today or donate, I could do that.
You could do that easily. All right.
Easily. Yeah.
Speaking of symbolism and you know, parallels, that 9 West over there, tell me a little bit about those, man.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know about 9 West, man. Look it up.
Okay.
That caught my attention. So let's bring it into the frame and let's see what that looks like.
These are an interesting story. I guess that doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Yep.
I bought these for a wedding that I was asked to be in.
Okay. Bridesmaid?
Yes.
Yes.
Bridesmaid.
Okay.
And they are a little symbolic because the young woman who asked me to be in her wedding,
Yes,
to
ma'am.
be a bridesmaid, we are not friends anymore. Yeah. A little bit of it's not even bittersweet. There's no sweet to it,
There's
really.
no
It's
sweet
just,
to it.
yeah, it's just a little sad.
Okay.
But this reminds me of just relationship, right? That she had asked me to, she was once one of my employees. After we worked together, she'd asked me to be her mentor.
Yes.
And so we entered into that type of relationship, mentor, mentee. And truly loved this young woman. I mean, she felt like a sister to me. She was with us in some of the hardest times of our life. When our daughter came premature, 6 weeks, and we lost our home to a hurricane. And she was just very present for us. And she would watch our daughter for us, and just, she would come over after work and just hang out with us.
Like family.
Like family, 100%.
Wow.
And so, you know, she was dating a young man while we were in this relationship, and she would confide in me just, you know, struggles they were having.
Absolutely.
And just, she was healed from past relationships. We kind of went through this process of like her healing from past relationships and letting go of some of the trauma that she had experienced. And I was very grateful to be in that sacred space with her, going through that process. And this young man, we really liked him. You know, he was a little quiet and not very talkative or transparent, or
more of an introvert type, or was he just...
I would call him an introvert for sure. Yeah. And I imagine he had his confidants, people that he really revealed himself to, but we didn't really get to see that side of him a lot. And I think, you know, we tried to pull some of that out of him. Like, we tried to read a book with them and, you know, just kind of be available to them in their dating relationship. But I think it's one of those things where you can't take everyone with you to the seasons that you're going into. True. And so I think for her, she became a mother during the pandemic. She had both of her girls very close together, and they became a very insulated family very quickly. And we happen to live in the same area. She doesn't live that far, you know, from where we live right now in this area. But I think I was that for her, of someone that I'm going into a new season. I'm changing, I'm evolving in my marriage and in my motherhood. And I was someone that could not come with her. And I think the turning point for us was a scenario where they were making a decision as a couple, and I questioned the decision as a reflection of their witness, right? Of like, how will this either add to the character of God and your witness in trying to share Christ with others, or will this detract from other people trusting that God can do the impossible?
God can do the impossible. Right.
And I remember having a conversation with her and her fiance, and something he asked me was, do you think we cannot succeed in our marriage without you?
Wow.
Man, if I could go back and like tear the layers off of that question to better understand of what did I do? What was his interaction with me that made him think I stood in that position?
Right. And what are you really asking?
Because the answer was absolutely not. You could have never met me and be married to this beautiful woman, and you guys are going to have a great relationship. They're still married now, and I'm not in the picture, you know? So it's really curious, just even now reflecting, like, man, what was in his past and in his own luggage that he brought to that conversation, that led to that question. So I think in general, there just probably was maybe she had to choose between her husband and this relationship.
And this mentor of mine.
Of course, you're going to choose your husband. Yeah.
How did that affect you though?
I think I still mourn a little bit, grieve to this day, because I know she has, 2 girls that are growing up, and I haven't spent any time with them. To think about the time that we had together and the conversations we had. And all of that happened around the time where, like, I lost my best friend to cancer. There was just a lot going on in the world. The pandemic was very emotionally
draining, I'm
draining
sure,
for a lot of people. And we also were new here, so it was like we could have this community. And then just getting a chance to see her as a mom. You know, I saw her as a young professional and watched her grow, and you just feel like you're missing out. I feel like I was missing out. Yeah, on a
Were
lot.
you in her life before the fiance or now husband?
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
I knew her way before she even met him.
Wow. Yeah, that's tough. And we'll get a little into that in, in a second. I know April 6th has a lot of meaning to you, so we'll talk about that in a second. But let's talk.
I have these, but I don't know if or when I will part with them.
Yeah. Do you wear them pretty regularly? No,
I've not worn them.
Not worn them since. Wow.
No.
Wow. Okay. Very good. Very good. All right. What are those right there? Those Chuck Taylors, or what are those high tops I see over there? Yes.
These are some good old fashioned kids.
Oh wow, I love it. I
These
love
are my
it.
rain shoes.
Yes.
And
rain
shoes.
shoes.
See, they've been through some stuff.
They've been through some stuff, man. We in
Yes.
Texas, so I'm sure, no doubt. Well, tell me a little bit about those. How long you had them, and what's the story behind those?
I've had these good over probably 4 years, if not a little bit longer.
Okay.
I mean, they look pretty good for 4 years.
They do.
Right?
That's what I was about to say, man. I thought those were new. I thought they were new, man. You know, shout out to them.
Right, just shout out to kids. I've tried to replace them, and I have not found a good fit.
You ain't gonna find a good fit.
Just not gonna find a good fit.
That's definitely unique. Where do you wear those to, or what kind of outfit would you wear that with?
Very casual jeans, but these are like, it's raining outside. My feet need to stay dry.
Absolutely.
Even had these when we had that crazy snow here 2 years ago. And feet dry, feet warm.
Wow.
Good.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
But these are kind of back to the symbolism situation. You know, rain has a lot of significance for us. Going through Hurricane Harvey in 2017. And, you know, we had God's timing is God's timing.
Yes.
And sometimes we're impatient with God's timing, and then we will say, man, it took a long time.
Right.
It's a long time to us because it's just like what you want to experience.
Exactly.
The place you want to be. So in our measurement, we tried a long time to conceive a child. And we, at some point, you know, we tried the things we tried, and then we're like, you know, we're just not, it's okay.
It's okay.
And we're just going to be okay with it.
Yeah.
And
did you actually have that conversation? Were you okay with it? I feel like a lot of people say it's okay, and they're not really okay. That must have been a tough realization and a tough conversation.
Yes, it was tough. I think it was a very challenging time in our marriage. I think a lot of people who face fertility challenges will tell you it can make or break.
Break a relationship.
And we know people who have been divorced after trying to have children.
Yes.
I think my husband and I were kind of on two separate sides of the fence in that conversation initially. Like,
right.
If we are in a position to have children, that's great. If not, I'm cool with that too. You know, maybe we can adopt later, or maybe this life is supposed to be you and I. We're going to do other ventures and travel and do all the things.
To us, man. Yes.
My husband was less convinced of that. I think he really felt like he could not picture a world where he was not a natural father to a child.
Wow.
And he wouldn't have that experience of fathering his own children. And so that was a very hard time for us. So, you know, we did one round of IVF after a couple of years of just kind of trying, and it failed. I would say it failed, but it was God's answer was not this way.
Not this way.
Not this way. And so we found out actually on Father's Day that we would not be able to continue in the IVF process.
Wow. That must have been really, really tough. Sorry to interrupt, man.
No.
I mean, when you say we found out, tell me, because a lot of people here are struggling with that issue right now of infertility. And, you know, as a Christian, I'm sure they would love to hear your testimony. When you say we found out, was it, a lot of people say, man, you know, I found out, and they're talking about physician told them, or, you know what, I heard from God, or whatever.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
When you say you found out,
it was a phone call from the doctor's office. You know, we went through the process of, you know, that time period where you're taking the hormone. I'm taking the hormones and doing the shots and all of that, and trying to stimulate this egg production.
Absolutely, right.
And, you know, some women are like, man, I had 25 eggs.
Man, yes.
I was like, I had like 7 or 8 or maybe 9. You know, I don't remember exactly, but probably 9, I think it was. And then, you know, your eggs have to continue developing past a certain point, and we didn't get to that point. And so we got that phone call of like, we just didn't get past the 3 days or whatever it was that would allow them to do the fertilization process. And even all of that was such a spiritual, tumultuous time for me, because it was are we supposed to be doing this? You know? God ultimately is in control of life, but I know that He's also given us science.
Big believer in that. I'm a big believer in that. I would love to hear your opinion about that, man, because I believe, God has given us science, and science is there for a reason,
And science has its limitations, though.
No doubt.
And,
no doubt.
I think for God to be seen the way that He intends to be seen in your specific story, then I feel like we have to have wisdom around that, right? Like, this has worked for other people, and maybe God's okay with that in their story. But in our story, that was not how He was going to be seen as providing.
Exactly.
So yeah, it was very, because I was torn spiritually in that way. Like, all right, God, I feel like I'm trying to give my husband this thing that he really, really longs and desires for. If we're to be married, and I'm the only one who can do that.
Right.
But I don't want to do this. I just don't want to do it.
I want to do this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I knew I was going to need these.
It's all good, Mama. Take them, please. Take your time. A lot of people need to hear this. A lot of people are where you were back then, and they need to know that God works all things together for good if you are called according to His purpose, right?
Yes.
And I'm a strong believer in that. So, the question is, when you got to that spot, were you convinced that God had an answer on the other end? Did you hear from God, and were you settled that, okay, maybe the IVF process is not for us, and God has an answer naturally or whatever?
Yeah. I wasn't convinced that God's answer was a child, though. I was convinced that He had an answer.
He had an answer, no doubt.
He always has an answer.
He always has an answer, right?
But sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no,
right?
Sometimes it's not right now.
It's not right now. Where was your husband in all of this?
He was there.
He was there.
I think he was doing the best he could with his own,
right?
And he'll have a chance to tell his own
Absolutely,
story,
yes.
But I think he wanted to exhaust all the possibilities,
Scientifically. Okay. Very good. Very good.
And that doesn't mean that his faith is always separated from that process either, but
definitely not. Yes.
He himself is a science person, so he's like, this stuff works, and it has worked for many people. And we were really close friends at the time with a couple who probably had spent almost over a decade trying to get pregnant, conceive.
Wow.
I think they had been through 3 or 4 or maybe 5 IVF cycles themselves. They tried IUI and all the other things.
Everything.
They had buried 2 babies. So we had this close relationship with this couple who's like, knows what it feels like to be in that space.
You were doing life with this couple.
Doing life with that couple, yeah.
I'm sure that was helpful. Yeah.
It was helpful. They're very encouraging and very supportive. But we got that phone call, and we felt like that was God's answer at the time.
That was God's answer, yeah.
Not this way, or not right now, or no.
Right.
And then 6 months later, we got pregnant.
Wow.
Just naturally,
Miracle baby.
Merry Christmas. It was over the December, time frame. So Christmas, and then my birthday's in January. So it was like
double blessing.
Merry Christmas, happy birthday. Here you go.
Double blessing.
Yeah.
I love it. Love it.
We were ecstatic.
Yes. Typical day. What kind of shoes do we catch you in? I mean, are you the typical Frisco mom? You wearing stilettos everywhere, or you doing your kicks?
I got my.
I'm just messing. Hey, Frisco moms, don't call me, man. I'm just messing.
Don't be in your DMs.
Don't be in my DMs. What's a comfortable shoe? Like your everyday go-to shoe.
Either the minimalist shoes or something like them, because I have a couple of pair that are similar.
Okay.
Or my little slip-on boat shoes, my Columbias, they're really easy to get in and get out.
Absolutely.
But super comfortable, practical. I'm very practical.
Very practical.
Just like I have to be practical.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah.
Today's April 6th, and I know April 6th has, you've mentioned a couple of things in your past. April 6th has, some meaning, for you, a lot of milestones. Are you okay to share some of the?
Sure.
Yes, please talk to us about April 6th. Bittersweet, I know.
I'll go in order. Kind
of.
It's my mom's birthday would have been today.
Grandma Abuela, yeah.
My abuela,
Yes.
yeah. So my family's from Puerto Rico.
Beautiful.
My grandmother moved to New York City when my mom was like 6 or 7.
Okay.
Man, this is a woman who never learned how to read or write.
Wow.
Her own language. She spoke Spanish only. She lived in New York City until she was 96 years old, I think.
Wow.
And never learned to speak English either.
Really?
She knew all the curse words.
Of course,
That was about
that's usually the way it is. Yes.
But my mom would always say, but she was good with money. You could not cheat her out of 1 cent.
1 cent.
That was her language. And so it would have been her birthday today. And then my dad passed in 1995.
Sorry to hear that.
And he was in his 50s, I think. Yeah, so that was April 6th.
Was he in New York also?
At this time, we were living in Texas, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was 14 when he passed away. And then in 2009, I met my husband for the first time.
On April 6th?
On April 6th.
Oh,
yep.
snap. Okay.
I wrote it down.
I love it. I love it. Do you care to share how you guys met, where you met?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we both went to the same university, but a couple years apart.
Okay.
And I was interviewing for a job at that university. I, at the time, was living out of state, though. But I was in town for the interview, and we met at a mutual friend's house. We actually didn't talk very much at the friend's house. Yeah. And I was...
I'm sure he noticed you, though, but go ahead. Yes.
Well, that's his story. It's a lot more vibrant than mine.
I love it.
Because I only got to, meet him and learn his name. And the friend whose house we were at, he was my ride to the airport the next day.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I was out of a bad relationship for a little while, and I was not interested in getting back into one. And so I feel like all of this was just God's prompting.
Yes.
And I had decided, like, I'm not going to be the aggressor. And when I say aggressor, I mean the one pursuing.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, how are you? Really being intentional about being noticed.
Right.
And so my friend's taking me to the airport the next day, and I just tell him, if your friend asks about me, then you can give him my number.
Yes.
But if he doesn't say anything, then don't even mention this conversation.
Yeah.
Because it means he didn't notice me, and that's okay. I'm going to move on. I didn't really think twice about it after that, because I felt like it was just, people say, like, when I met him or her, like, I knew.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't know.
I
didn't know. That grew over time for me.
Right.
But I just felt like God had a plan, a purpose for that meeting, that arranged time.
Awesome.
I didn't get the job.
Okay.
I actually got told I did a very terrible job. My interview was terrible.
Wow.
So I really felt like I was there for a purpose.
For a purpose.
That was what I was there for.
And you were there for the husband. You didn't know at that point.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, April 6th, and then was there another significance to April 6th?
I went, the college I went to, I made really good friends with a couple people, and one of those young men, his name was Jamal Powell, and it's like 6'4", 300 pounds. He would always say that 6'4" and I'm pretty. That's what he would say. Yes. He was just full of life,
Full of life, yes.
And initially when I met him, I did not like him because he was very his presence. He just took up so much space. And I came to love that about him. And we actually were more alike than we thought we were.
Wow.
And he was dating my best friend at the time in college. They did not continue their relationship, but he and I stayed friends. We were friends for a really long time. And he was a football coach, so he moved around the country a lot. Yeah. And his last coaching job landed him at SMU in Dallas. And so we were closer then. And he ended up just becoming ill and kind of mysteriously had, the day he told the story, the day he felt ill was his hands were burning.
Wow.
And so, he's the kind of guy that's not going to go to the doctor just because he my throat hurts. Let me go to the doctor.
Right.
But I think that carried on for a little while, and then maybe a day or so, I don't know exactly how many days, his wife eventually took him to the hospital, and then he was admitted to the hospital, and that was the journey started.
Wow. Eventually,
I think he lived probably about 2 years, and then he died eventually of colon cancer. Was what took him a couple of days before his 40th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm sorry to hear that.
It was very, very tough.
Yeah. Were you born in New York?
Nope. Houston.
Okay. And were you born into a Christian home? It's a loaded question, but
no, it's
I know
actually
you
it's
know.
an interesting question
Yeah.
because my family originally they were not Christ followers. At the beginning of my mom and dad being married, and I have an older sister who's 15 years older than me, and she actually was the one who introduced Christ to our family.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I love her stories because I don't have a lot of memories of my father. Definitely no memories of my mom and dad together as a married couple and raising a family. Being the youngest, I missed out on a lot of those like key memories that a lot of the other siblings have.
Absolutely, yeah.
But she tells the story of when she came to know Christ, she would write to my dad, just write him letters.
Wow.
I'd love to read those letters today. I'm sure they're somewhere in the family. But I think my dad and my mom brought I have a brother right above me who's 3 years older than me, and brought us, I think, to my sister's town where she was living. My sister got married at 18. So I was 3, and she moved away to a smaller town north of Houston. They came for Easter, and my dad gave his life to Christ. And
what a testimony.
I think my mom tells a story of my dad turned to her and told her, "I'm a sinner." And then he walked down to the invitation to discipleship, to salvation. And so that was the beginning of his Christ walk.
His walk, yes.
And a couple years later, he started to get sick and had a stroke. They suspect Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. Eventually, by the time he passed away, he was bedridden and mute. My mom was his sole provider, his caretaker. And so from 3 on, that's really kind of how I knew my dad was either using a walker, half his body was not working, and then eventually, he was in a hospital bed in our home.
Wow.
So we had a neighbor next door who went to a local community church, and my mom would send us to church with her. I was probably maybe 5 or something like that. My brother a little older than me. So I kind of grew up slowly in a small community church. Not introduced to the true God, because sometimes when you're in churches, you're exposed to people's own interpretation, how they choose to represent God in their own traditions, and experienced some racial issues being in that church. So I knew that God was bigger than that experience I had, but that was the beginnings of it. And so I did I guess I would say I gave my life to Christ in that church, and I was baptized in that church as a young kid.
Beautiful. You've touched on some very, very important topics, infertility, loss, cancer. How would you say, this might be a general question, how would you say your faith has helped you through those moments? And we can go, all the way back to college, first off, in college, did you know, hey, this is the career God has called me to? I know you're in education, and you worked in higher education. Was that a calling? Did you hear from God? I mean, a lot of people say, man, this is my calling. I knew this is when I was 5 years old. I'm like, man, I ain't heard this, none of this from God, man. Which God y'all serving? So tell me a little bit about that. How's your faith helped you through those important milestones and decisions? Yeah.
I think the first, I'll give you kind of a not general, but I grew up in a little bit of a rough home. My oldest brother was a drug addict for a large part of my childhood.
Wow.
One of those situations where you have to have a padlock on your room because your stuff's going to be missing when you come home. Real talk. That's my real life. That was my real life every day. So my mom's taking care of my dad. She's consumed with, I can't even imagine the level of exhaustion. I only have a 6-year-old, and I have a very thankfully a very peaceful life, and I'm still tired, and just even just running kids around and being married and all that. So I can't even imagine the level of exhaustion she had with just 2 small kids.
Wow.
We're grade school, she's taking care of my dad. She's basically a full-time nurse, 24/7. And then my brother and his drug addiction, and he, the woman that he was his high school sweetheart, they had a child very early at 17, so they live with us. And so she has a small kid. I think he was 5. I was 5 when he was born. Wow. So we're auntie and nephew, but we're really close in age.
Yeah.
So I think the faith is there just as a a perseverance through these types of
Right.
situations. And my father passes when I'm 14.
Mm.
So God is probably definitely working more than I can notice, because I'm just a young believer and I'm a baby Christian drinking milk.
Yeah,
You know, I don't know.
Still in the middle phase at this point.
Still in the infancy.
Yeah.
So don't truly understand the full scope of all the ways that I was protected and all the ways that God favored me. But, you know, I was the first in my family to go off to college.
Wow.
So that was a new experience for me. So I think naturally, growing up, I was saw a lot of things that I knew were not wise choices for me.
Right.
So I was never the college kid who went to the parties. I didn't drink. I wasn't having sex. I was there for business, you know. And I think growing up in a situation where my father was ill and my mother was consumed, my brother and I knew we needed to stay out of trouble, get to school, get back, like take care of business, and don't create extra work for anybody to do. So I just think we grew up very serious kids with a lot of personal responsibility.
You were forced to mature quickly.
Right, and conviction to just stay in the lines, you know, don't get too far out the guardrails.
Absolutely.
So I went to college as a very serious person as well, and, you know, had some fun. And my level of fun was, we're going to go to Taco Bell and I'm going to count this bag of pennies to buy some tacos, with my friend. And, you know, make some tuna helper. And I was watching movies. You know, there was the level of fun and freedom for me was probably different than a lot of students that go off to college. But I continued to look for a church home and went to a Baptist church when I was in college. And I grew up in a predominantly Black neighborhood, went to a predominantly Black high school. You know, Latino and Black really was the community that I had. So I sought out a Black church when I went to college, and felt like I grew a lot in those college years. You just begin to want to understand more and know the faith for yourself.
Absolutely, yes. A personal relationship.
And I think my faith really, you know, once I decided to get married and go down that journey, I think is when my faith truly was something that I knew I needed to cling to in a different way. Through the infertility, for sure, just like trying to understand the purpose of this, you know, and just thinking, I think sometimes we think God's a genie. Like, you know, you
scratch this and ask for this and expect this,
do this, this is your reward, you know. And so I very much struggled with that early on, of like, you know, God, I've waited until I've gotten married to be physically intimate with a man. Why can't I have this? This is supposed to be the fruit of all of this, and we are the only creations that can do this. So why would you keep this from me? You know? So I think that began this conversation with God about how he truly works, how his goodness is revealed, and how our situations and circumstances are less about us and more about knowing him.
Wow.
And
you mind saying that again? People need to hear that. People need to hear that.
I think we often
rewind and listen to this.
We oftentimes, you know, even just reading scripture, we want to read scripture and say, how does this apply to me today?
Yes. What am I getting out of this?
And many times it's like, you know, God's inviting us to know him. And how this is your circumstance, but what are you going to learn about me and my character?
And the power of my resurrection.
Yes, and the power of living in him. So I think that was the beginnings of truly digging, you know. And then we go through the infertility, and then, you know, we do conceive, and then our daughter comes 6 weeks early.
Premature. Wow.
I'm thinking, wow, this very thing that we asked for, now you decide to give it to me. Now I might lose it. Like, what is going on here?
Yes.
How am I supposed to see you in this scenario?
Yes.
She's fine. She's healthy. We get to bring her home, and then we experience a hurricane.
Wow.
Now we're evacuating our home at some point to try and find dry land, you know. And I have this premature baby. We're evacuating our home. We're living in the loft of our friend's home for 10 days. My husband's out trying to find us a new place to live on his own, because I'm completely mentally and emotionally not available. And then we finally get into this, you know, garage apartment. We end up in a 1-bedroom garage apartment from a 2-bedroom, 2-bath townhouse. And my husband stands there and he's like, okay, I have to go back to work tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
I'm surrounded by boxes and this new baby. And I'm like, okay, so I better get it together. And I think I explained this later, having conversation, just trying to unpack all of those emotional experiences, because it took me a long time to just bond with my daughter and feel mentally and emotionally healthy.
Yes.
And it wasn't that people say I was mad at God. I wasn't mad at God. I just didn't understand.
Right.
And I think sometimes the lack of understanding, because we're people that want to understand.
Of course, that's it. God is
so many careers exist because people are trying to understand,
trying to find meaning,
find meaning and truly like, what is this? What's the purpose of this?
Yes.
And so I think trying to find understanding was my experience. So I wasn't angry, but I was quiet.
Yes.
And the analogy in my mind comes like, I'm sitting in our little tiny living room holding our daughter. I have praise music on, like piano worship on the TV. And I'm there quiet, and I feel like God's there and he's quiet too. And just like that, I'm here and you don't understand and you may not ever understand, but I'm here. And I'm still good. And so I think that was my spiritual battle at the time was that. And I used to be a person who journaled. I have journals for days. Like I just journal everything. Man. I used to write poetry, and after having my daughter, there were so many things that just didn't resonate with me anymore. And I think it was this period of silence that I just felt like, you just have a friend that's just like there, like I'm here.
I can feel you. I can touch you.
I'm gonna let you talk and let you vent and let you feel how you're feeling, and I'm just gonna be here. And I felt like that was God, just there.
Did you, at this point in your life, I'm sure your husband is working. I think he's still in training at this point, correct?
Ooh, he was trying to finish up residency and get out that thing.
Man, how in the world, man? I think people need to hear this. How did you, the Bible talks about the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians chapter 6, and long suffering is what I'm thinking about here. Literally long suffering, not just patience. How did you, looking back now, I'm sure you see God's hand in every little step, but how did you make it through that, man? Being this mom at home with this daughter who's premature and having literally the whole world falling apart. Hurricane, was it Hurricane Harvey at this point? Harvey, and having to evacuate and living literally in a garage. How did you guys make it through that? I'm sure you're gonna say God, but I mean, come on.
I think it's one day at a time. I think my husband and I, as we have been married longer, realize that we're more alike than we are different. And we both have backgrounds where you had to persist to survive and to truly achieve the thing that it is, the goal that is there set for you. For me, it was surviving just the household, my upbringing, like not losing my mind with all of those things that happened as a child. And for him, it was like he knew he had been called to this trajectory of becoming a physician, and he was not going to give up. And so when I was younger, children were an easy thing to make, but actually being engaged and raising that child in a way that was good for them is a totally different story. So I was in a place where it was like, if God ever calls me to motherhood, it will be on purpose. And I want to be the mother that he's called me to be. And so when I became a mother, I knew that I was going to give all of myself to that calling. And I think we put our backpacks on and we went to work. I never went back to work. And so my husband was, what they call moonlighting, like working extra shifts. In addition to his already regular residency.
Crazy busy residency program, right? Yes.
He literally in 1 year made up half of my salary.
Wow.
That I would have made had I been at work.
Wow.
So I kind of put him on the altar to sacrifice him in order to do this calling that I had. That you had. Which I think it wreaked some havoc on our relationship. Sure. It's like we went on two different tracks. And we just knew we will be able to deal with this at some point, but we have to finish. We got to get out of here. We have to finish this race. And so that was the residency. We got to finish residency, get you a job, and then maybe we'll have time to like unpack, figuratively, unpack all these boxes. Yes. I think we were just committed to the marriage. Like we knew we would make it at some point, but we just had to continue on.
Absolutely.
Caring for my daughter was my healing process, to be honest. I mean, I would talk to her all the time, just telling her, Mama's not doing well today, but it's not your fault. I love you. I just remember those conversations to a brand new baby, just like, I'm not good, but I'm here, and I'm gonna care. I'm gonna take care of you, and we're going to be good.
Yes. And I'm sure you can
and this
see
is not
God
about you.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sure you can see the God in her every day, man.
Even today, she's a little fireball.
Even today.
You would never know that, she was 4 pounds 9 ounces when she was born. And I think she was my healing process, and I was grateful for that. I was grateful, even if reluctantly, that my husband gave me that space. And I feel like that was the beginning of my healing process. He began his healing process at a separate time, but I needed that time to just be able to be a mother who was invested and available emotionally, and to be able to be changed, because motherhood changed me. There's things that marriage, like when you get married and like our personalities are like clashing. We have to do some work here. There's work to be done, but human beings change very slowly. And so I think the power of God in my daughter and her presence in my life just really I began to wonder what was nurtured into me that I do not want to pass on to her. What are the struggles that my husband and I have, just personality wise, the ways that we conflict, and how can I teach her a different way? And I needed that space to become a different person.
See some intentionality definitely in that. You remind me of the story of Elkanah and Hannah and and Samuel in the Bible. When I think about some of the struggles I have with my wife, I don't know how people who are not Christians survive marriage. You know what I'm saying? For you guys at that point, I don't know how, your husband being very busy, you dealing with, a premature baby and dealing with the healing process. Where did God come into that? Do you think you could have made it through that if you guys were not Christians? If you didn't have your faith to fall back on, if you didn't have that blessed assurance that, Jesus is mine and there's something on the other side of this. How did you guys get through that? And could you have gotten through that without the knowledge of Christ and the blessed assurance of Christ?
I think my husband and I were, at that particular time, we worship in different ways. My husband's very much like on his way to work, he's blasting his worship music. Like that is his place to re-energize. I think this was a time when we were not necessarily fervently.
No doubt. And it's a process,
we weren't going to church because we just didn't find a place that we felt was good for us, right? I was praying in my silence. He was probably having his own prayer time. We did not have a collective like prayer time for us as a married couple. And I feel like God keeps you often, even when you're not acknowledging him in the best ways.
Man, that's grace.
So I can't say that we were just like these, go into your prayer closet and I got all my sticky notes in there.
That's not the reality for most people, though. It's not.
And I think it can be like when you reconnect with the wonder of who God truly is, and how much his love is there and available, even when you are not acknowledging him. I'm grateful for his patience and his grace, that he isn't that kind of God that's like, you haven't prayed in 3 days, you out of here. I'm cutting you off. So yes, I feel like God was etched in us, and we knew his truth, and we knew that was our true north, and that was our foundation. I don't think we were necessarily living out externally and with each other every single day. We would, watch church online and worship in our living room, and and pray before our meals. But it was the beginnings of a bigger process for sure.
Yes.
I wouldn't want to try it the other way, though.
Right.
If you're asking, like,
that's precisely the question,
yeah,
right?
I wouldn't want to have gone through those things
Mhm.
without a sense of a bigger hope.
Yes.
Of
Without that foundation.
There
Yes.
is a good God who's looking out for me, even if bad things happen.
Right.
Because bad things happen to everybody.
Everybody. You talked about your grandmother in New York, who lived until you were 96. She was 96. I'm sorry. When I think about, the idea and this fallacy a lot of people have in our culture today about individualism and making it on your own, this idea of self-made, right? It's not a Christian belief. As Christians, we know that God wants us to live in community and in fellowship, right? And that, you use the word mentor and mentorship and your mentee, that lady you were talking about. Who are some important people in your life that have helped get you to where you are today and have helped build the character that you have? And you're such a humble person, and a lot of things you're doing in the community. Who are some people that have been instrumental in where you are today?
As tough as the current reality is for my mother and I, 'cause my mother is aging and we just have, had a lot of family conflicts.
Absolutely.
I have to give her props.
No doubt.
For sure.
No doubt.
Just what she decided to do. My mother tells stories about, her own mother, that she was a provider, but my mom was never told I love you.
Wow.
And she was not given affection. She was bullied by her own siblings sometimes. And she had she was very adamant and determined that her children would experience affection.
Something different, right?
And experience I love you.
Yes.
She won on that. I feel like, I had that childhood where I felt like, though we were in some ways trauma bonded, my mother and I could always hop in her bed and get a hug and get a snuggle.
Excuse me.
I think it's funny to think about how stress responses you have, and we would see something on TV, it wouldn't be that funny, but we would die laughing and be crying, like, okay, we stressed out.
Coping mechanism, right? Yep.
She had a lot to handle. She had a lot to overcome. My father, stories are that he was not the best husband initially in their relationship. She didn't get to experience the marriage that she probably had hoped for when the day she fell in love with my dad. She raised 4 kids. We all have, for the exception of my brother who lives with her now, who I think he just has had a tough time with, the drug addiction and all that. But, she did what she said she wanted to do.
Absolutely.
She raised kids with affection and love. And so definitely my mom, is a pillar in beginning that for me. The second person, I wouldn't necessarily put her in this order because she's more in my life now than before, but my oldest sister, just crediting her with the boldness to bring Christ into our family.
Man.
And I didn't, when you're 18 and 3, we're in completely different lives.
Completely different worlds, literally.
And
yes.
We've had different worlds for a very long time. She's married, 2 kids, I'm 5.
Right.
And seriously.
Right.
How can I relate to a married woman with children?
For real.
But when my daughter was born and we were going through what we were going through, I think God pressed it upon her heart as an opportunity for us to heal. And she came to serve.
Oh, wow.
And she was massaging my legs after my C-section. She was cooking for us. And I appreciate her so much that she didn't come with like, give me the baby.
Give me the baby and all that, right?
I needed to bond. I needed to heal and,
yes,
find my way as a mother. And I don't know what I would have done without her.
Wow.
She was there in the hospital before I went home, and she can tell me stories that I don't even remember because my brain is probably like, we're going to put that in the back because you can't handle it right now.
Yes.
And she and my daughter are so close. Actually, we just dropped her off at my sister's today for
Shout out to the sister, man. You a blessing for sure.
A little overnight.
Yes.
My daughter loves her auntie. And we have grown in our faith together as well. Because my sister has remained faithful and very patient, with trying to share more of the gospel with us and with me specifically.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm very grateful for our relationship now, for sure.
Yes.
When I went to college, I remember I had a work study job.
And I know about them jobs. Yep.
Just to give you some context,
Yep.
I told you before, I grew up in a predominantly minority community. The only like Caucasian people I really interacted with was at this little community church that I went to as a kid, and it was not positive, right? So I arrived at college at a PWI, a predominantly white institution.
Yep.
I'm a girl from the hood, and so my suspicions or my radar or my guard is really
already up,
high,
right? Yeah.
Because I've not experienced anyone from another community that had good intentions.
Good intentions, right.
For us. When I say us, I mean kids like me.
Absolutely, yes.
So, just the way that God does stuff, I had a work study job, and I walk in from my job, and the first woman I worked for was like the office manager. And she wasn't super friendly. She's just like, casual or whatnot.
Just business.
Just business, yeah. But there was another woman who worked in an office adjacent to her. And eventually I ended up working directly for this other woman. And just like her office is there and my little student office is right here. And this was a woman who helped me take down these racial barriers. Like, good people are good people.
Regardless, right?
Regardless of what color they are. And so much so that, she really helped to strengthen my faith during college as well, because she, before the office even opened, she would invite me into her office so we could pray before we interacted with other people.
Wow.
When, financial aid is funny.
What?
She was encouraging, and I would just remember even being invited to her home to have dinner.
Wow.
So this was a woman that I will always remember her. And she was such a wonderful experience, and just like, God calls people.
Absolutely.
He calls all colors, all people. And when those people are truly living out the love of God, it doesn't matter. Not that she neglected my culture at all, or didn't see color. I know people say that. I don't see color.
Stop it. Yes, it's right here.
Let's not say that. But she was just very affirming, and had an opportunity to introduce her to Antoine, to my husband when we got married.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I would definitely say her.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful.
And I'm sure there are other people along the way,
of course,
but none that I've truly kept. I know that they were just people who were supportive of my journey along the way.
Absolutely.
A big part of my journey is alone, though. I was being the first to do things. Absolutely. It can be a very lonely journey.
Experience, and
you don't have anyone who's gone before you. It's not common for people to volunteer to be a mentor, and when you're new to your journey, being the first one, you don't even know to ask for a mentor. Who do you even ask? And so going through that, undergrad and going to grad school, and then eventually choosing to get married and have kids. I mean, it's been a little bit of a lonely journey.
Absolutely.
Someone who's my senior who can really coach and help, but have developed some good friendships along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For the little girl in South Dallas or Puerto Rico or Houston who's watching this today and is thinking, you know what, I wanna be her when I grow up. I wanna have a strong faith. I wanna know what I believe, why I believe it. And also, I wanna have a blessed family. What advice would you give them? How can we get to this place where we have inner peace? A lot of people kind of interchangeably use the word joy and happiness, and they don't mean the same thing. I see joy when I look at you, and it's not dependent on your circumstances, right? How does somebody get there? What advice would you give them based on all your past experiences, and what would you say?
Before I say that, I also would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge my husband as a pillar in my journey.
Absolutely.
I think I've changed and become the best of myself with him, for sure. Yes, he's been a wonderful, at times very challenging.
That's what we did for him.
Change is hard.
It's hard. Yes,
he's definitely. I would put him at the top of the list. Not comparable to anybody else in the list.
Absolutely.
For sure.
What a blessing. Yes.
I'm very grateful. Advice. One, I think if you're not a Christ follower, ask the questions, go searching.
Go search.
And go searching with an open mind. And that's hard because there's so much information, there's so many options, there's so many things that you could do and you could follow. But I think when you follow Christ, it is one of the only faith walks where love is unconditional, but love has boundaries.
Hey, say that again.
Love is unconditional,
yes,
but love has boundaries.
Has boundaries, yes.
Because, the love of Christ is unconditional.
No doubt.
This is my offer to you. But also love has boundaries. I am a jealous God.
Yes.
You cannot worship other gods outside of me.
Yes.
I do require your entire life is submitted to me.
Yes.
You welcome me into every room of your house.
Yes.
And you are inviting me to rearrange those rooms and to transform them to look like my original design for my creation.
Yes.
That's what all Christ followers are working towards, sanctification.
Yes.
And that's not a, by this date, I will now look like Christ.
Right.
It's a lifelong
process. That's
so I would say ask the questions, don't be afraid of the answers, and I think we're so consumed, like you said, with individualism and having control and identity, and this is who I am, that we don't give God the space he needs to remake us. And we think we know best who we are.
Yes.
And only God truly, he has a name for us that we don't even know what it is yet. So that'd be the first thing. If you're going to choose a faith, and this is not to speak ill of any other faith. I don't personally know any other faith in my own walk. I know something about them, and this is the one I've chosen. And as the one that has comforted me in the good and the bad.
Absolutely.
And then in that faith, then you are then asking God, who am I and who am I to be?
Yes.
And it's even a process of I always call them heartstrings, that your heart is not tethered to any of what the world has to offer, whether it's fame, popularity, what you look like, who your friends are, what your connections are, how many likes you got, your bank account, the type of car you drive, the type of shoes you wear. If you can commit yourself to a lifetime of pursuing the intangible, the things that you can't put your hands on.
Exactly.
And I always tell my daughter, we're teaching her, it doesn't matter how pretty you are on the outside, but if your inside is ugly and it's rotten and it's consumed with the things that when you leave this earth, you cannot take them with you, then you are losing, you're missing out.
You're missing the point.
You're missing the whole point.
Yes.
So to get a grasp of the intangible things that truly make life worth living on this earth, whether you have trouble or you have good times, those are the things that will last. Those are the things that, the Bible says only the things done for God will last. Everything else will be burned up, will be burned up in fire. And be willing to be changed by encountering the love of God, because that's really, ultimately, he's going to make you look more like him.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're such a wealth of wisdom, and I feel like we need a part 2 and a part 3 and a part 4. Man, we're gonna have to come to your house and do this again. For people out there who because I ain't got nothing to say. You're such a wealth of knowledge that I want to literally reach out to you and ask a question and seek your counsel and your advice. Is there a way they can reach you? I mean, you on social media, you on TikTok, Facebook? I'm dating myself now. I mean, I hear the kids ain't on Facebook no more. Are you on any social media platform? How can they get a hold of you?
I mean, I'm such a minimalist, and so not just my shoes, but everything
in
is
life.
so in life minimalist.
Email, anything.
Yes.
I ain't gonna put your number out there.
No,
but
you're good. I do have an Instagram page because I do I love learning from other mothers and you know, just learning what's out there. And eventually I'll probably have to have all these things because my daughter will be engaging in the world. And I'm like, what's new out there with these young kids?
Yes.
But it's hilarious. I don't even know how to say this, but I think it's at. Okay. Is that how you give your IG profile?
Yep,
At Aced Stewardship. Okay. So ACED Stewardship is the word. So Aced Stewardship. ACED Stewardship.
All right. What is Aced Stewardship? You don't mind me asking.
So my husband and I, we created Aced Stewardship as an LLC.
Beautiful.
We eventually, I think it's just a seed planted for something in the future.
Absolutely, yes.
But when I decided not to go back to work, we officially established LLC so I could do, you know, contract work.
Absolutely.
And people could hire me to just do odd jobs here and there.
Beautiful.
But I think eventually it will become something bigger. But we originally felt like it was given to us this idea of planting seeds that can grow people's dreams.
Amen.
And the very first gift that we gave, or the seed we planted, my sister-in-law wanted to do a photography business, and she loved photography. And we sowed a seed to buy her first camera, her first official, professional camera for her to do that, for her to build those dreams.
Right.
And what would people really be doing if they didn't have to do their full-time job, but they could follow their dreams and the things that they feel like they truly are gifted to do. And sometimes, you know, money is a barrier to that because they got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So eventually this dream of being able to just seed people's dreams and get them started on where they really want to be and where they really want to go.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to see Aced Stewardship blow up. I know God just, you know, has a blessing in store for us. But yes,
God's will,
please reach out to her on Instagram. Again, she's a wealth of knowledge and you will not be disappointed. So I want to say a big thank you for, giving us your time.
Yeah, it's hard to tell your story sometimes.
Amen to that. And we want to be a platform for good Christian, inspiring people like you. There's a lot of good news out there, man. And there's a lot of junk, that is popular nowadays. But the good news is not being shared. And that's what this platform is about. So we just want to say a big thank you and say God bless.
Thank you. God bless you too.